is Pasupula Manideep. I am making this video to explain the derivation of Navier-Stokes equation starting from force balance equation. So in this derivation, let us start first by deriving the stress tensor from Cauchy construction. So before going to the stress tensor by Cauchy construction, let us know about a small thing called traction vector. A traction vector, by definition, it is the limit value of force over area. So here the delta F is the force and delta S is the area of the element, and delta F is the force acting on that elemental area. And here this T represents the traction vector. It's actually bolded. Okay, so here the N represents the normal vector to the surface element. So an infinite number of all these traction vectors act at a point, each on different surfaces, each acting on different surfaces uh, through their respective normals, different normals. Okay, so now let us come to Cauchy's law. This states that there exists a Cauchy stress tensor sigma. This is a second order tensor which maps the normal to the surface of the to the traction vector acting on the surface. The Cauchy law tells that there exists a stress tensor which maps the normal to the surface to the traction vector acting on the surface. So it basically says that T equal to bolded T, this is the vector, T equal to stress tensor into the dot product of stress tensor and the normal vector. Okay. In the index notation, it can be written as Ti equal to sigma ij into nj. Now let us try to prove the Cauchy's law which we have just discussed. Let us consider a tetrahedron construction. Okay, I have already drawn it. So consider a small tetrahedron free body with a vertex at the origin. This is the origin. Okay, now it is required to determine the traction T in terms of 9 stress components. We know that the stress tensor we took was a second order tensor and it has 9 components. We should show all the 9 stress components on this tetrahedron which we have considered, tetrahedron free body. Okay, so we consider that this tetrahedron is in equilibrium. So we do a force balance. We first represent all the stresses acting on it in the different directions. So it is already said here, these stresses are acting on the plane x1 and x3 of the tetrahedron. Okay, and uh, sigma 11, sigma 21 and sigma 31 are acting on x2, x3 plane of the tetrahedron. And n bar or n cap is is the normal vector acting to the surface of the base of the tetrahedron. Okay, and T is the traction vector acting at that point. Now let us consider the area of the base of the tetrahedron as delta S. Okay, so let me name it. Actually it will be more clearer than A, B and C. So the area of ABC is delta S. Area of ABC equal to delta S. Similarly, area of OAC is delta S2 and area of OBC is delta S1. Area of OAB is delta S3. Okay, we are just considering the numeric which is like opposite to, which is perpendicular, like x2 will have s2 and x1 will have s1, right? So now from this figure, like we can try to, we can actually resolve this delta s area in terms of delta s2, s1 and s3. So let us try and do that. Here let the base vectors be e1 cap, e2 cap and e3 cap. E3 cap. Okay. So now we can say that delta S1 will nothing but n dot E1 n bar dot E1 cap into delta S. Okay. Uh, Let us take n1 n bar as n1 E1 cap plus n2 E2 cap plus n3 E3 cap. Okay, so that will be which implies that delta S1 will be n1 delta S. Similarly, delta S2 will be n2 delta S. Similarly, delta S3 will be n3 delta S. Okay, now after sorting this, now let us go back to the figure. Okay, so now in this figure, let us resolve all the forces in one direction first. Like first in the x1 direction. Okay, before resolving the vectors, let us first resolve the traction vector also. So let us write the traction vector as T1 E1 plus T2 E2 plus T3 E3. Okay, so T1 E1 will be in this direction, right? So in this direction, the force will be nothing but T1 into delta S, T1 into delta S. Let me write this in another sheet. Okay, so that the force in that direction will be T1 into delta S minus. You can also see you can see that there is a stress acting in other direction, sigma 11, which is acting on the area element delta S1, right? So uh, in the vector form we can write it as, we already resolved the delta S1 as N1S. So we can write in delta S as sigma 11 into N1 delta S. Okay, and rest of the components also follow in the same direction, same way. Okay, sigma 1 to N2 delta S and minus sigma 1 3 n3 delta s. Okay, which is this sigma 1 2 n2 delta s because it is acting on delta s2, and sigma 1 3 n3 delta s. Okay, so now we assume that the tetrahedron is in equilibrium, and also it is like it is an elemental tetrahedron and it is in equilibrium, so all the forces acting on this direction acting here will be very small. And like as the tetrahedron, like let us consider the length of the perpendicular from the origin to the base be h. Okay, the length of the perpendicular, let that be h. Then as h tends to 0, the resultant forces in each direction will be equal to 0. Okay, this will be equal to 0, right? So we can write T1 equal to sigma 11 n1 plus sigma 12 n2 plus sigma 13 n3. And so we can also, in the same way, we can write T2 as sigma 21 n1 plus sigma 22 n2 plus sigma 23 n3, and T3 as sigma 31 n1 plus sigma 32 n2 plus sigma 33 n3. Okay, saying that, let us uh, rearrange this in a more like good looking way. So the T1, T2, T3 on the left hand side can be represented by the traction vector T, and we can write the sigma component as the stress tensor. Sigma 11, sigma 12, sigma 13, and so on. Okay, and we can write the n1, n2, n3 component as the normal vector. Okay, so this is nothing but the stress tensor. Okay, so at last we our problem statement was to derive the stress tensor from Cauchy construction. So at last, from this tetrahedron construction, we just derived the stress tensor. Okay. Hey, in the previous video, we have derived the stress tensor from the Cauchy construction. In the present video, let us show that the stress tensor which we have derived is symmetric. Okay, so let us start the procedure by assuming a fluid element of volume S, volume V, and surface S. Okay, so uh, from this, the I component of the total force which is acting on the fluid element can be written like Fi equal to integral capital Fi dV plus volume integral of, and next the surface integral of sigma ij dsj. Okay, this is written in the index notation. It states that the forces and the this is the body force and the surface forces. So the total force and the I component of the total force can be written in this form. Okay, this is the volume integral and this is the surface integral. So to make everything in terms of volume integral, we can make use of divergence theorem and divergence theorem, and we can write this component as in volume integral of del sigma ij by del xj into dv. Okay, so the rest of the part will be as it is. Right. So now let us consider like the order of the system. Okay, order of magnitude of this equation, like how it will scale up. Now let us consider like V is tending to 0, the volume of the elemental thing which we consider elemental fluid element, like what is the elemental fluid? Okay, the fluid element which has volume V, let us consider that volume V is tending to 0. Okay, now as it tends to 0, it is reasonable that to suppose that Fi and del sigma ij by del xj are approximately constant across the element, like they don't change because the volume of the element is so small. Okay, so at this point both the right hand contributions of this equation scale up as capital V. Okay, they scale as capital V, both scale as capital V. Okay, I mean if the volume increases, this term increase by this term scales up by V, and this term also scales up by V. Okay, so according to Newtonian dynamics, the ith component of the net force acting on the volume element equal to the is equal to ith component of the rate of change of momentum, right? It's nothing but the net force acting on the volume element is equal to the rate of change of its linear momentum. Okay, so as volume tends to 0, in this case the linear acceleration and mass density are also approximately constant across the element. So the rate of change of linear momentum also scales up as V. Okay, linear momentum also scales as V. Okay, so why are we discussing this like scaling criteria here? This will be cleared in just like in the further discussion, much clearer. So by this we conclude that like there is uh, for the linear equation of motion of an infinitesimal fluid element, there is no particular restriction on stress tensor, right? The like the stress tensor term is also scaling up as V, and the force term, body force term is also scaling up as V. There is no particular restriction, like particular thing, speciality about like there is no speciality about this term. Okay, now let us consider some other thing now. Okay, now let us consider the ith component of total torque. Just now we have considered the total force, ith component of total force. Now let us consider the ith component of total torque, which is represented by Ti. Now we can write this as, in the index notation, as volume integral of epsilon ijk xj into fk into dv plus surface integral epsilon ijk xj sigma kl dsl. Okay, so here epsilon ijk is the third order permutation tensor. Okay, this equation is like nothing but torque is like the radius into the force. Okay, length into force, and here the length into stress. Okay, and the area element. Now here in the same, in the similar fashion of the previous like derivation, in this also let us convert the second term of the right hand side by using divergence theorem. So by divergence theorem we can write that as, integral v epsilon ijk del xj sigma kl by del xl dv. Okay, we can convert this surface integral to volume integral by using the tensor divergence theorem. Okay, now we can reduce this term, to further reduce this term. Xj dv plus volume integral of epsilon ijk sigma kj dv plus integral volume integral epsilon ijk xj sigma kl del sigma kl by del xl into dv. Okay, into dv, right? Why is this happening? Because we can, like, when we take like sigma xj by sigma xl, del xj by del xl will, it is nothing but the chronicle delta ij, which is the second order identity tensor. Okay, so by using that condition we came to this equation. Okay, so in this equation, if you clearly observe, here the uh, let us do the same discussion which we did in the earlier force term. Now this is the torque term. So now as the volume tends to 0, as the volume of the fluid element tends to 0, the force and sigma ij and also the uh, del sigma ij by del sigma del xk will all be approximately constant across the element. Okay, because the volume is very small. Now, if we observe, the first element will scale here as v power 4 by 3. Okay, here the force is constant. This is also the third order permutation tensor, which is like constant, and here it is scaling up like this is the volume term and this is the length term, which is almost equal to the order. I am only speaking of the order. The order will almost be equal to v power 1 by 3. So into we have the volume term here. So the total order will be like it is scaling up as v power 4 by 3. Okay, and this is for the first term. So the first term. Now for the second term. Okay, here this is scaling up as capital V. Only volume. There is no length term here. Okay, so this is only scaling up as capital V. And coming to the third term, it is scaling up as same as the first term. Okay, V power 1 by 3, the length part and the volume. Rest are constants. So this is scaling up as V power 4 by 3. Okay, now we can like we consider that V is close to 0, right? V is close to 0, V is tending to 0, close to 0. So in this equation, if we in this equation, when the volume like this term scales up as v power 4 by 3, this term scales up as v power 4 by 3, but this term, the second term, only scales up as v. Okay, the order of magnitude is v power minus 1 by 3 greater. Okay, for this term, v power minus 1 by 3 greater. Okay, so when the velocity is close to 0, this v power minus 1 by 3 term will like absurdly like it has a very large value. Okay, so uh, like if this term is not 0, or this term must be identically 0, otherwise the fluid element will have absurdly large angular velocity, right? Because this element will be absurdly large. So for this element to be large, the stress will be very large. Okay, like the angular velocity, the resultant angular velocity will be very large here because of the scaling factor. Okay, this cannot happen. So this term, the E ijk into sigma kj term should be identically equal to 0. Okay, which is nothing but we derive Eijk into sigma kj should be equal to 0. Okay, which is nothing but the stress tensor must be symmetric. Because of this equation, the stress tensor must be symmetric, right? Delta ji equal to delta sigma ji equal to sigma ij, sorry. Okay, now let us actually derived what we want for this. We wanted to show that the stress tensor is symmetric. So we arrived the condition that stress tensor must be symmetric in any case. Now let us discuss a further little components. Now by this relation, it immediately follows that the stress tensor has only 6 independent components, right? Like 3 have vanished because of the symmetry. The 2 1 sigma 2 1, sigma 3 1, and sigma 3 2 are identically equal to these 3 terms respectively. So because of the symmetry. So the stress tensor has only 6 independent components. Okay. Now it is always possible to choose a set of Cartesian axes such that the non-diagonal components as in these components of the symmetric second order tensor can all be set to 0. We can choose the Cartesian set of Cartesian axes using which the non-diagonal elements components of the given second order tensor field will all set to 0. Okay, that set of axes are called as principal axis. Okay, that set of axes are called as principal axis. Now uh, in such reference frame of the principal axis, the diagonal components that these diagonal components become principal stresses, okay, which are denoted by a small prime, 2 2 prime and 3 3 prime. Okay, these are called the principal stresses. If we consider the principal axis, these are called the principal stresses. Now if we, for a general tensor, the sigma ii, which is the trace, sigma ii, which is the trace, will be equal to sigma 1 1 plus sigma 2 2 plus sigma 3 3. But if we consider the Cartesian system, a set of axes as principal axis, then sigma ii will also be equal to sigma I 1 1 dash plus sigma 2 2 dash plus sigma 3 3 dash, right? 3 3 prime or 3 3 dash. Okay, so we can tell that sigma ii, the trace of the, at any given point, the trace of the stress tensor is always equal to the sum of the trace of the stress tensor is always equal to the sum of the principal stresses. In the previous video, we have shown that the stress tensor is symmetric. In the present video, we are going to show that the stress tensor is isotropic for a fluid element at rest. Okay, we are going to show that the stress tensor is isotropic for a fluid element at rest. Right. Let us first write the stress tensor which we derived in the previous class. we are considering the principal stresses, so the non-diagonal elements will be 0. Now we already know that sigma ii equal to sigma 11 prime plus sigma 22 prime plus sigma 33 prime. So let us now divide this stress tensor into two parts, such that one part will be isotropic and other part will be let us write first. Okay, now we want this part to be like one part should to be isotropic and the other part will arise automatically. So we can write that as 1 by 3 sigma ii 0 1 by 3 sigma ii 0 0 0 1 by 3 sigma ii. Okay, this is the isotropic part. Now if we subtract this from this equation, this stress tensor, we get something like minus 1 by 3 sigma ii sigma 22 prime minus 1 by 3 sigma ii 0 0 sigma 33 prime minus 1 by 3 sigma ii, right? So here this is the isotropic part. The first term is called as the isotropic part. The second term is termed as deviatoric part. We will get cleared by the terms uh, just in just a few seconds. Now, like visualize a fluid element, okay, on which only the isotropic, the stress tensor part is acting, right? So if so, the all the forces on that would be like something like this, like in every direction there is the equal amount of force acting. Okay, there are equal number and there are an equal number and equal like amount of forces acting in each direction. In the same way, let us consider another fluid element which is acted upon only by the deviatoric part, right? So if I draw this, it will look something like this. Okay, this will be direction. Okay, this is in like this is one is x1 axis and one is x2 axis, and the other will be out of the paper, which like let us assume it to be 0. There is no point of drawing that. Okay, so in this you can observe that the fluid element can resist the deformation and it can like stay static even if isotropic like part is acting on it. isotropic stress is acting on that. Okay, but here you can see that it is continuously deforming, like it here it is compressed and here it is like expanded. Okay, continuously deforming, not compressed is not exactly the word, it is continuously deforming. So when the fluid element is like deforming, we can consider that it is not static. Okay, our problem statement was to show that the stress tensor uh, is isotropic for a fluid element at rest. Okay, so if we consider that a fluid element is at rest, then it has to have the deviatory component as zero. Otherwise, there will be deformations. It is if it is non-zero, if then there will be deformations and there will be motion of the fluid. Okay, that's not going to happen in the static condition. So there is only isotropic stress tensor for the fluid at like the fluid at rest. Now we can like write this isotropic stress tensor for the fluid element at rest. We can write the like sigma ij, will be equal, the stress tensor will be equal to minus p of delta ij. Okay, where p is nothing but minus 1 by 3 into sigma ii, this component. Okay, this p is called as static fluid pressure. Okay, this p is called as static fluid pressure. Okay, now uh, this is for the fluid element at rest. Fluid element at rest. Okay, if we consider a general case, we can write the stress tensor as minus p into delta ij, which is the isotropic part, plus as we derived, there is going to be a deviatory component, which is in our case, in the static fluid case, this will be 0. Okay, now this is a general case. We will use this expression in our further discussion, but uh, as of now, this is our main importance, this is our main goal of this video. Like sigma ij is minus p into delta ij. Okay, in the previous video we have shown that the stress tensor is isotropic for the fluid element at rest. In this video we are going to derive the equations of motion for a fixed control volume, right? So equations of motion of a fluid element, like fluid for a fixed control volume, right? Now let us assume a control volume, okay, which is represented by capital V with a small slash, with a small dash. Okay, control volume. Okay, this is the control volume, and let us consider an elemental volume whose volume will be dV. Okay, now let us also consider a surface element ds. Okay, whose vector will be n and traction vector will be t. Right, the total surface area is S. Okay, total control surface, not surface area, it is the control surface. Right, S is the control surface, and ds is the elemental surface area, and n is the vector perpendicular to ds, and is the traction vector. Right, so we now begin, like for the equations of motion we basically we will begin with the verbal statement of principle of conservation of momentum. Okay, principle of conservation of momentum. Principle of conservation of momentum. Let us verbally propose, like form a statement. Right? We can tell that rate of increase of momentum of material within the control volume will be equal to net rate at which momentum enters control volume with the flowing fluid, which is the net flux of the momentum, plus sum of the forces acting on the fluid in the control volume. Okay, so we can tell that net rate of increase of momentum, like rate of increase of momentum of the material within the control volume, will be equal to net rate at which the momentum enters the control volume with the flowing fluid, and sum of the forces acting on the fluid in the control volume. Okay, now step by step let us form the mathematical representation of the above statement which we have just written. Right, now as the density rho and velocity v can both be dependent on the position, we can write the momentum content of the fluid of the control volume as the momentum content of the fluid in control volume as volume integral of rho, which is the density, into the velocity vector into dv, right? We can represent it as a bar. Okay, this is the momentum content of the fluid in the control volume. Okay, now if we want the time rate of change of this momentum content of the fluid in the control volume. Now we can just like differentiate the above expression, this expression with respect to time, right? Now we also know that the control volume is in the fixed in space, so we can take the uh, derivative inside, and that becomes the partial derivative of time. So we can write the rate of change of momentum content of the fluid in control volume as dou by dou t of rho into v bar dv, right? We can write this where t is the time. Now we have just derived the mathematical form of the LHS. As you can see, the LHS is rate of increase of momentum of material within the control volume, right? We have just like this is the same thing, rate of change of momentum content of the fluid in the control volume. Okay, now let us derive the RHS of the verbal statement. Okay, then the first thing we need to derive is the net rate at which the momentum enters. Okay, like the rate of influx of momentum. Okay, so we can write the like we can write that net rate at which the momentum is entering the control volume you through the control surface, because the momentum is entering through the control surface. So we can uh, like the rate of, we can write the rate of influx, of mass. First let us consider mass. Okay, then we can multiply with velocity and we can get the momentum mass through a differential area, which we consider the ds as a differential area, mass into the control volume through ds, through the differential area ds. Okay, is given by, it can be written by minus rho into v bar dot n bar ds. Why is this negative sign? Because we are considering the net flux of mass into the control system, control volume, and the uh, vector n is pointing outwards, right? Now this is the expression for influx of mass, rate of influx of mass. So now if we consider the rate of influx of momentum in the same way, momentum into the control volume through the same ds, then it will be just multiplication of the velocity to ds. So integrating this over the entire surface, control surface will give us the net rate of influx of the momentum, right? The net rate at which the momentum enters the control volume with the flowing fluid over control surface. This gives our control surface rho v cap v bar ds. We can write this as minus integral s rho into v bar dot product with ds bar. Okay, this is the elemental area vector. Now for this expression, like we can convert the above like surface integral to the volume integral by using divergence theorem. So by using divergence theorem, we can write that surface integral as volume integral of grad dot v into dv, right? Okay, so we also got the first term of the RHS. This is the first term of the RHS, the net rate at which the momentum enters the control volume with the flowing fluid. That rate is nothing but this expression, right? This expression. Now let us turn our attention to summing up the forces of the forces acting on the fluid in the control volume, right? Now if we talk about the forces, there are we can broadly divide it into, like we can broadly divide the forces acting on the fluid element forces in our case we can broadly divide them into two cases. One is like body force, two forces, and the other is contact force. Okay, now the body force act on every volume element within the fluid. Okay, the body force acts on every volume element, but and this does not need any contact. Like we can take for example gravitational force, it does not need any contact with the material to exert its influence, right? So now let us get into like a discussion of body force. Okay, let us call a term F bar to designate the body force per unit mass. Okay, body force per unit mass. Okay, so the body force on the elemental fluid element with the volume dV inside the control volume. So the total force acting on that would be, body force acting on that would be on the dV element, the total body force acting on the element will be equal to rho into F bar into dV, right? We can integrating over control volume. We can integrate over control volume, and it becomes like the body force acting on fluid in control volume will be given as volume integral of rho into F bar into dV. Okay. Now the body force term is sorted out. Now let us come to the contact force term, right? Now the contact force on the fluid located on the surface of the control volume arises from the intermolecular forces exerted by the molecules on the outside of the surface, right? So the uh, like this force, this forces are arising due to the intermolecular forces acting on exerted by the molecules on the outside of the surface of the molecule to the inside of the surface. Okay, we are considering a controlled surface, and the outside elements are exerting force on the inside element to the inside of the surface. So we this results in the contact force, right? This force can be exerted, this force can be represented as as a result per unit area, and it is termed as T. This is nothing but the traction vector which we have discussed in our first video, right? It is nothing but the traction vector T, or it also can be represented by T bar. Now the contact force acting on like the elemental fluid is can be written as T into ds, right? Because the traction vector is nothing but force per area. So we can uh, do a uh, total control. We can integrate over control surface. Then we get the over control surface. Then we get the contact force term. This is the contact force term. Okay, this is the contact force term. Now that we have got all our like terms of which we have termed in the verbal statement of our principle of conservation of momentum. We have sorted this out, and also we have sorted this out. So let us write all at one place. So that would be looking like integral of del by del t, integral of del by del t dv equal to minus integral volume integral grad into rho v bar into dv plus the body force term plus the surf contact force term. Okay. Now if we like now consider, let us consider that the volume is going to zero, the control volume is like approaching to zero. So let us consider the characteristic length, so that will also be approaching zero, right? Length scale L will be also be approaching to zero. So all the volume integrals approach zero, like they are proportional to L cube, right? This is the length scale. So as like volume goes to zero, L cube goes to zero, right? These are all proportional to length L cube, but this element is proportional to L square, right? Now let us divide this whole equation by S and take a limit to L to 0. Okay. So if we are not considering this, that as like we are deriving dividing the taking the limit by dividing the expression as, let us sum up all the volume integrals. So without considering this part, I consider these three terms, then this whole term will now be like proportional to L. This goes to 0 as L goes to 0. Like so, this limit will be equal to 0. So in this expression, if I am taking the limit of like 1 by s into this expression is 0, then the limit of this uh, limit of that element as 1 by s goes to 0 should be also equal to 0, right? This should be also equal to 0. Now if by this statement we can like we are this implies that the stresses are in local equilibrium, right? This is the like this represent the stresses, though, so the stresses are in local equilibrium. Okay. From the Cauchy's law we know that if the stresses are in like local equilibrium, like we have already discussed the Cauchy's law as T bar equal to n bar into the sigma. This is the stress tensor term, right? Like in the derivation of like in the proof of the Cauchy's law, we considered that the uh, tetrahedral element is like in equilibrium. So in this, all uh, the control volume is in equilibrium. The local stress, like the stresses are in local equilibrium. So uh, we can form a stress tensor which satisfies this condition, right? Now, so I can transform this integral into this. Like I substitute this equation into the integral, then the integral becomes this. So I can like by reducing the expression, I can basically say that it is nothing but this, right? So for this, I can use the divergence theorem and transfer it into the volume integral. So when I change this into volume integral, this becomes, by using divergence theorem, by divergence theorem, integral S ds bar dot sigma can be written as volume integral of grad dot sigma into dv, right, into dv. So now if we substitute this back into our momentum equation, like conservation of momentum equation, then that becomes as, and sum up all the terms, we can write that as integral of volume integral of del by del t of rho v bar plus grad rho v bar into v bar minus the body force term rho into f bar, okay, rho into f bar minus grad into sigma, which we have just derived, in whole into dv, which will be equal to 0, right? This is our conservation of momentum equation. Now we chose our control volume arbitrarily, right? So there is not, like the entire this vector function in the integrand continuous vector, it is a vector function of position. The integrand is a vector function of position. So if it is non-zero at any location in the fluid, then the control volume can be selected such that this expression can be non-zero, right? If this integrand is non-zero at any point of the fluid, then we can consider that point as our control volume and make this expression false. But that's not going to happen, because this expression should be equal to 0. This must be equal to 0. Hence, the integrand should be equal to 0 for all the points, right? Hence, to balance the integral, like to maintain this equation, the integrand must be equal to 0, right? This should be equal to 0. Okay, now we can write this equation, like we can rewrite this equation as del by del t of rho into v bar plus grad of rho into v bar equal to rho into f bar plus grad into sigma. Okay, let us term this equation as equation star, right? This is our conservation of momentum equation as of now. Now uh, let us use the index notation on this LHS part. So using index notation on the LHS part gives us del by del t of rho into v bar plus delta into rho b bar into v bar equal to del by del t of rho into vi plus del by del xj into rho into vj vi. Okay, we can rewrite this expression as vi into del rho by del t plus rho into dvi plus del t dvi by del t plus vi into del rho vj by del xj plus rho into vj into del vi by del xj. Okay, we are not considering the vj by xj term, del vj by xj term, because that is equal to 0 uh, like from the continuous mm, equation, continuation equation. Okay, equation of continuity, right? So now, like, we can rewrite this equation, this whole equation as vi of del E by del t into plus del rho vj by del xj plus rho into del vi by del t plus vj del vi by del xj. Okay, we can come back to the normal form from the index notation. We can write this as grad v bar into grad v bar, right? V bar into grad v bar. Okay, now this term will be equal to 0, right? Because of continuity equation of continuity. Now we are only left out with this term, right? Now we can rewrite that left out term as equal to, that left out term is del v by del t plus v bar into grad t. This is nothing but the material derivative, right? This is nothing but the material derivative of velocity. Okay, so now uh, let us substitute back this into our equation star. What was our equation star? Del s del by del t of e uh, rho v plus del of rho into v equal to body force term plus contact force term. So now we can substitute this left hand side by this, right? So if I rewrite that equation star, I can write rho dv by dt equal to rho f bar plus grad of sigma, right? Now from the index notation we can write this equation as rho into d some ui by dt is the velocity into sigma fi plus del sigma ij by del xj. Okay, this v and u are velocity, so I wrote u in term of v. Okay, now these are the equations of motion for fixed control volume. Equations of motion for a fixed control volume, right? In the previous video, like, we have derived the equations of motion for a fixed control volume. In this video we will like obtain an expression for the stress tensor in terms of the velocity gradient, assuming the fluid to be isotropic. Okay, so let's proceed. So first we know that we can write the stress tensor sigma ij as minus p into delta ij to dij, right? This we have proved earlier. Okay, now this is the isotropic part, this is the deviatoric part. Okay, now if in this particular video we will focus on dij mainly. Okay, now this is related to like fluid in motion, right? This is related to fluid in motion, so it can also be related to something like del u by del x, right? Okay, if we give it indices, like it will look, it will depend on del, like u by del x, because this is like this determines the movement across, like we have studied in our like lower classes about the viscosity, action of viscosity. So this is the like x part. Okay, this is the direction xl, and this is the uk. So how the uk is increasing, like u is increasing in this xl direction. So this is like all the motion related things can be compared like related to the deviatory component, right? So to equate this, like this del u uk by del xl represents the rate of deformation tensor. Okay, I have took the like indices from the rate of deformation tensor. Okay, so I have taken these indices because like we can equate dij to del u by del xl with the help of a fourth order tensor ijkl. Okay, that's why I took the indices as k and l. So like d, we can, like, this is a second order tensor and this is a second order tensor, and like this is the fourth order tensor. So uh, like to equate this we have the inner product, like, which is the second order tensor. Look, so the order is equated. Now this it is said that the fluid is isotropic. In our problem statement, it is said to assume the fluid to be isotropic, right? So uh, if we assume aijkl, this becomes like aijkl becomes the fourth order isotropic tensor, right? This becomes the fourth order isotropic tensor. Now we know that delta ij is a second order tensor, right? Second order isotropic tensor. So we can like write aijkl as the product of two second order isotropic tensors. Okay, so we can form an equation as ijkl equal to mu into delta ik into delta jl. Like I am writing all the possible combinations, delta il and delta jk plus mu double dot double prime into kl, right? So this the expression is a generic form of fourth order isotropic tensor. Okay, previously we have discussed that dij is equal to aij into aijkl into del uk by del xl, right? So here we know that dij is symmetric in ing, right? The deviatoric component is symmetric. We know that dij is symmetric, right? So in ing, so as we are equating dij and aijkl, aijkl should also be symmetric in ing, right? So now I am telling that aijkl should be also be symmetric in ing. So when I write the expression, this same expression for this uh, like ajikl, then the expression looks like jk into il plus mu dash del jl into del ik plus mu double dash into del ij into del kl, right? Okay, so these are basically same because of symmetry in ing. So we can equate both of these equations, both of these expressions. So from that we will get this, like these terms get cancelled out and we are left out with these terms. So we can write as minus which is equal to 0. But from the tensor calculus, like from the basic tensor calculus, we know that this term is not always 0, right? Not always 0. Hence, for this expression to become true, mu should be equal to mu prime. Okay, for this expression to be true, for this equation to be true, mu should be equal to mu prime. Okay, now let us put this mu equal to mu prime back into this equation, our fourth order general equation. So we will conclude something like Aijkl equal to mu of delta ik delta jl plus delta il into delta jk plus mu double prime delta ij into delta kl. Okay, here mu is the coefficient of, it is termed as a coefficient of viscosity. Okay, and mu double prime is termed as second coefficient of viscosity. Second coefficient of viscosity. Okay, now we know that dij equal to aijkl into del uk by del xl, right? So we can expand using this expression, this equation, which is also equal to mu into ik jl plus del il del jk into del uk by del xl plus mu double prime del ij del kl into del uk by del xl. Okay, now we can simplify the right hand side. We can simplify the right hand side. Okay, by using like tensor calculus of the chronicle delta, we can simplify the right hand side and write the dij expression as mu into del ui by del xj plus del uj by del xi plus mu double prime into del ij of delta ij of del uk by del xk. Okay, del uk by del xk. So now let us term eij. Okay, this is eij. Let us term eij as half of del ui by del xj plus del uj by del xi. So now then this term will become ekk, right? Because we are like essentially replacing I and j with k's. So this term will become ekk. Right. So we can rewrite this expression in terms of eij and ekk. That will be equal to dij is 2 mu eij plus mu double prime of delta ij into ekk. Right. Now we want to get rid of this mu double prime term because we don't want we don't want our mu double prime in our final Navier-Stokes equation. So let us get rid of that term. Now using the property of the deviatoric uh, stress tensor. So the deviatoric stress, the trace of the deviatoric stress tensor dii will be equal to 0 because like this the trace like the sum of the elements of the deviatoric diagonal elements of the deviatoric stress tensor will be equal to 0. That implies dii equal to 2 mu eii plus mu double prime delta ii chronicle delta ii is equal to 3, trace of the chronicle delta is equal to 3, and ekk, this will be equal to 0, right? This will be equal to 0. Okay, now if that is equal to 0, then like we can cancel out this eii and ekk term because they are going to be of same value. So 2 mu plus 3 mu double prime equal to 0. That means mu double prime is nothing but minus 2 by 3 of mu, right? Mu double prime is equal to minus 2 by 3 of mu. Now uh, like we substitute this equation in back into the dij equation and we get the final expression for dij, right? The final expression for dij will look like 2 mu of eij minus 1 by 3 del ij delta ij ekk. Okay, this is the final expression of dij, the deviatoric stress tensor, right? Now where eij is half of del ui by del xj, the velocity gradient terms, right? Our problem in our problem statement it is given to like prove the stress tensor in terms of velocity gradient. So eij is basically the velocity gradient terms, e terms. So now we can write the whole stress tensor as dij as by substituting this equation, right? Okay, So at last we have got the expression. Okay, like our problems, we have got the expression for the stress tensor in terms of velocity gradient by assuming the fluid to be isotropic. Right, we have got the expression for the stress tensor by considering in terms of the velocity gradient. Previous video we have derived the stress tensor in terms in terms of the velocity gradient. uh, so now we are going to substitute the stress tensor expression we have derived in the previous session into the equations of motion which we derived much earlier. Like before that video, we have derived the equations of motion by assuming a fixed control volume. So we are going to substitute the stress tensor into that equations, and we are going to get our Navier-Stokes equations. Right. So first I will write the equations which we have previously derived. The first one is the stress tensor equation. Okay, which have derived in the previous video. Right. So sigma ij is minus p into del ij, which is the isotropic term, and this is the deviatory component. And here eij means is nothing but 1 by 2 into del ui by del xj plus del uj by del xi. Okay, the velocity gradient terms. Now we have also derived the equations of motion dvi or dui by dt equal to rho of fi plus del sigma ij by del xj. Right, we have derived both these equations in the previous videos. So now what I am going to do is I am going to substitute the sigma ij from this equation and put it back into this equation. Okay, so that would look like rho into dvi by dt equal to rho into fi plus del by del xj of the sigma ij term p into delta ij plus 2 into mu of eij minus 1 by 3 del ij ekk, delta ij ekk. Right, so I can uh, sort of simplify this equation much further, and I can get this p outside, and you can write that as del p by del xi plus del by del xj of 2 mu into eij minus 1 by 3 del ij ekk. Right, I have just removed the p outside, so I got del into minus p delta ij by del xj as minus del p by del xi. Okay, now let us assume that mu is like constant. Let us assume the mu is constant, so we can write the expression as, and let us also like now let us expand Eij, and let us use Eij equal to 1 by 2 into this term in this equation. So the whole term by like the whole equation after assuming mu as constant will be rho Fi minus del P by del Xi plus mu into okay, mu into del by del xj of 2 into, if I expand Eij, then I'll get 1 by 2 of del ui by del xj plus del uj by del xi, right? Then we have this term, so let us write that too. That will be equal to 2 by 3 into delta ij into del by del xj of del uk by del xk, which is ekk term, right? So now let us combine this, like let us reduce this equation much further. We can cancel this 2 out, and now I can write the equations as dvi by dt equal to rho fi plus minus dp by dou xi plus mu into del square ui by del xj to del xj plus 1 by 3 into del square uj by del xi into del xj, right? This would be the final equation after transforming the like after transforming using the basic tensor calculus. So this expression, this final expression is nothing but our Navier-Stokes equation. Navier-Stokes equations. This is nothing but the Navier-Stokes equations. Okay. So previous video we have uh, obtained the Navier-Stokes equations, the general Navier-Stokes equations. We have to now, in this video we will simplify those Navier-Stokes equations specifically for an incompressible fluid. Okay. So the Navier-Stokes equations which we have derived was this one, del rho into dvi by dt equal to rho into fi minus del p by del xi plus mu into del square ui by del xj into del xj plus 1 by 3 into del square uj by del xi into del xj. Okay. So here now we are going to assume that the fluid is incompressible. If we apply that the fluid is incompressible in this equation, then this term will go to 0, because due to equation of continuity, del uj by del xj will be equal to 0, right? Del uj by del xj will be equal to 0, which essentially means that the term del square uj by del xi del xj will also be equal to 0. Okay, so we can rewrite this equation by removing this element, which will be equal to rho into dvi by dt equal to rho into fi minus dou p by dou xi plus mu into del square ui by del xj del xj, right? This is the equation after we assume that the fluid is incompressible. Now let us drop the indices and write in the natural form, normal form. So that would be del into du by dt, like velocity, equal to, this term will be minus grad p, right, plus rho into force term, body force, plus mu into this will be grad square into u, right? So finally we have achieved this expression, which is the Navier-Stokes equations for an incompressible fluid. Okay, thank you.